Hello! Now I will present participatory capacity and vulnerability analysis and assessments, how we define PCVAs, some examples of guidelines and main steps and tools. Lastly, we will look at additional factors that are needed to strengthen PCVAs. According to the organization Action contre la faim, PCVA is an investigative method that uses a variety of qualitative participatory tools to engage local stakeholders in their own disaster risk and vulnerability diagnosis. It combines local knowledge with secondary information from science, policy, or practice. For Oxfam, PCVA is a risk analysis process that is designed to engage with communities in contexts where disasters and climate change are significant drivers of poverty and suffering. Many other definitions exist. Many organizations and institutions have developed guidelines and toolkits on how to conduct a PVA or a PCVA. These are some examples that you can find on the internet. PCVAs can be conducted during an emergency or a conflict context, the recovery phase, or during prevention in a development or stable context. The length and extent of the PCVA process has to be adjusted accordingly in terms of time, length, and resources available. There are many strengths and limits to PCVAs. You can see examples of pros and cons in this overview. For example, PCVAs place importance to indigenous capacities and knowledge and are easily transferable to different contexts. However, PCVAs can increase expectations of community members and is resource demanding. Different guidelines and toolkits propose a series of steps to design and complete a PCVA. Here, I just show one approach developed by Oxfam and the Government of Australia. It is a one-level approach, for example, at the community level, although it could be used at other levels when adapted. The steps go from preparing for the PCVA to generating a community view and prioritizing an action plan. According to an Action Aid publication, one should not follow any toolkit mechanically, but should apply judgment on context and needs. PCVAs include participatory methods, background and context research, and stakeholder consultations and participation. Now I will show you a few of the tools that are used in some of the steps followed during a PCVA. The list of these tools is not exhaustive. Tools and information needed during the compilation of secondary data might include GIS, remote sensing, government policies and plans, census and statistics from different institutions. To generate a community overview, tools such as an analysis of hazards, daily time charts, historical timeline, and seasonal calendars can be used. This is an example of a disaster history tool developed in Burkina Faso from a publication by Action contre la faim. This means that major disasters having occurred in the history of this community are documented. This is an example of a seasonal calendar in Ethiopia. It is also described in the Action contre la faim guidelines. Here you can see a group of women developing a map where buildings, the river, agricultural fields, etc. are laid out. Long-term trend analysis and the review of secondary scientific information may be used during livelihoods analysis. This is an example of a circle diagram, where the size of the circles show the importance of the actor and the proximity between circles shows how close and significant a relationship is. For the governance analysis, some methods and tools include problem and solution trees. Here you can see a problem tree on the right and a solution tree on the left from a case study in Vietnam, described in Oxfam's Practitioner Guide to Participatory Capacity and Vulnerability Analysis. And here you can see an example of what a risk quadrant matrix looks like. The higher the likelihood of a risk occurring and the harsher the consequences, the more the risk is considered critical. Among many other factors, I would like to mention two that UNISDR identified as important when developing and implementing risk assessments and which apply to any type of PCVA. The first one is the need to use the information and analysis resulting from PCVAs to support risk management and reduction, and the second one is the need to include multi-hazard and cascading effects when conducting PCVAs. Also, as a third factor, we do in fact need a multi-level vulnerability analysis. Because many determinants of vulnerability are located outside of the individual and community level, a multi-level approach is recommended. This type of approach includes analysis, discussion and advocacy at different levels with exchange and support among levels. In this video, we saw that many PCVA guidelines and tools exist, that these analyses have both benefits and drawbacks. Also, we have seen that traditional knowledge has an important place in PCVAs, and that multi-hazard PCVAs should inform risk reduction and management strategies and plans.